It's Greg Cosell, NFL Films, joining us on the River Islands guest line. And yes, his handsome mug is on YouTube as well. Hi, Greg. How you doing?
Gentlemen, what's happening?
Well, a lot of the same, but then again, also everything's different. I want to just leave it to you. What stood out to you? Because I know you watched the Niner Titans, air quotes, game. What jumped off the TV for you?
Well, when I watched the tape, I didn't see the game on TV, but when I watched the tape, I'm really looking more at individual players because I'm not really thinking in terms of schematics or tactics. I'm just looking at players. You know, one of the things, because I watch so much college tape and see so many college players, because I evaluate probably 200 to 250 college players in detail before every draft, I'm always anxious to see those guys that I look at and that I know something about, so they're not foreign to me. So I'm really looking at individual players because there's not really schematics. I mean, obviously they're going to run plays that they've run in practice and that they want to see guys execute, but we're not, you're not thinking in terms of attacking the specific defense. So for me, it's mostly looking at individual players.
And who stood out? Like, as you looked at the tape and guys who you analyzed in college and who are now debuting in a preseason game, who'd you like?
Well, obviously, I know a lot of people are talking about Stribling. He played the entire first half, caught 7 balls. I think 2 plays stood out to me, probably 3. One was a negative, but 2 plays stood out to me as far as receiving. He had a catch. It was a curl route on the first play of their second possession where the ball was thrown a tad late and the corner Flott was able to sort of get up behind him, and he had to grab it over his head, just snatching it with his hands. That's what you really like to see with a receiver on a curl route, not having to use his body to catch the ball. He snatched it out of the air with his hands. That was a really good catch. And then obviously the long play, the 32-yarder. And that was the first and I think only snap where he aligned into the boundary. Every other snap, he aligned to the wide side of the field, either as the Z receiver or in the slot. And so the 32-yarder came when he aligned into the boundary. He ran the go route. He got on top of Flott. You saw the excellent body control, the ball tracking with great hand-eye. So that was a play that, you want to see the verticality because he is a 4-3-6 guy, and you want to see that element in the 49ers offense. The play that I'm sure he was disappointed in, and I'm sure Kyle Shanahan will talk to him about it because it's so important for the Niners, is it was the 3rd play of the game. They ran a pin-pull concept, which is a foundational run in their offense, and he missed the block on the DN Johnson, and it resulted in a 4-yard loss. And, that's a block that he must make in the context of the 49ers run game. But that's how you learn. That's what preseason is for.
Greg, I was anxious today to talk to you about the offensive line for the San Francisco 49ers. We know that last year their metrics and this is not just the line, this is a running back, this is the whole team, but their yards per carry went way down, and it's alarming, in fact, a little bit for a Kyle Shanahan offense. We can go over the reasons for it, but I wanted to ask you, with largely the same personnel coming back, McCaffrey, your lead back, it's the same, at least 4 of them, with a competition at left guard, pretty much the same offensive line.
Yeah.
What would be their reason for optimism, if any, that they will be better this year?
It's funny because I've done, over the summer, I do college guys, but then I turn to the NFL. So when I turn to the NFL, because I'm not under the gun with deadlines like I am during the season, I can do a little more research. So, last year, obviously, and I'm sure you guys know this, was the lowest running game output since Shanahan became the head coach, which I think was 2017, if I'm right. But the crazy thing is, and this is where it's kind of a, it's kind of an enigma. It's crazy. They averaged almost 7 plays per drive last year, which is really excellent when you think of the whole NFL. And they scored points on 47% of their drives, which was 3rd in the NFL. So it was a very odd, contrasting mix of seeming like they couldn't control the ball with the run game, but yet they did control the ball. So when you look at this O-line, as you said, there's really only one position that's up for grabs, and that'll be left guard. My sense is the competition will end up being between Robert Jones and Carver Willis. That'll be my sense. Robert Jones, was in Miami 2 years ago. started 17 games for a Mike McDaniel offense. So he's very familiar with the terminology and the methodology. This is not all brand new to him. He missed last year with a neck injury. We don't know where he stands, but if he's healthy, I think he's in the mix along with the rookie Carver Willis. And Willis, of course, is making a transition from tackle in college at Washington to guard, which is not an easy transition. I watched him pretty carefully in this preseason game. There were some good plays and some bad plays, which you would expect. That's not unusual or abnormal. To me, Connor Colby is going to end up being a little bit more of kind of the rotational journeyman type guy. I would be surprised if he won the job, but that's just me based on tape.
And based on the tape, are you seeing either of those other top two candidates being able to run this sort of a zone scheme? Because it seems to me that last year they had, 4 of the 5 offensive linemen do well on any particular run play, but they didn't have quite the syncopation. Is one of those two guys able to mesh, especially with Trent Williams on the left side?
Well, you would assume Jones can do that because he's done it in that style of system. Now it comes down to whether he's 100% healthy and where he stands after missing a year. It's hard to miss an entire year and just step right back in. Obviously, he's never played next to Trent Williams or next to Brendel, so we'll see. But, the same would be true for Carver Willis, who doesn't have any experience playing guard, going back to his college days, I don't believe. So, for him, it's all brand new. Not only does he have to learn how to play guard, but he has to learn the terminology, the methodology. He's got to learn so much more than Robert Jones would have to learn.
Greg Cosell, NFL Films, with us, Willard and Dibbs. Greg, can I dig a little bit more into those metrics that you just shared about last year, about how it was their worst run year, but they were still able to control the ball? When you watched last year, did you ever get to a point where you felt good about why they were having a hard time running the ball?
Well, I think that, look, there's a stat for backs that is, broken tackles, missed, backs.
Yeah.
And McCaffrey actually was among the highest in the league at breaking tackles. So the problem was obviously the O-line, in my opinion. I thought the O-line struggled a bit in the run game. Because the more I think about it, I don't think, and I guess we'll find out. Look, McCaffrey's going to be 30 years old. He played over 90% of the snaps a year ago. The guy never comes out. He ran over 300 routes. There's going to be some point where, as much as he stays in shape, the body is just going to give out to some degree. So we don't know the answer to that. But I didn't believe watching last year that McCaffrey lost it. I know that's easy to say because the numbers weren't there. But just watching every single game and every single play, I don't think McCaffrey looked appreciably different. Now, I know he didn't have the long runs. They only had 46 runs of 10-plus yards, which was the lowest number in the Shanahan era for 10-plus yard runs. And I'm sure a lot of people listening are thinking, oh, I'm wrong because, he couldn't run, he didn't have, 40, 50-yard touchdown runs. But he also didn't have a lot of clean holes where he could generate velocity and speed.
So, Greg, how might Kaelon Black factor into this? I know he didn't play in the preseason game, but he was back at joint practice against the Chargers yesterday and reportedly had a really good day. What do you know about his skill set, how it fits into what Kyle likes to do?
Oh, well, as you guys know, we've talked about him. I really liked his tape coming out a lot. Kaelon Black, to me, when I watched his tape, and again, when I watch tape of guys, I don't know where they're going to be drafted. So, I'm not sitting here saying, well, I thought he'd be a Niner. I have no idea about that whatsoever. But I really liked, watching him. I thought he was tough, physical, a grinder, powerful, kind of a no-holds-barred runner. He was the kind of back that he would run over people. I forget, he ran over someone who was a big-time player, and he's just a very, very physical guy, and I really liked him a lot watching his tape, and I think he fits the 49er run game. He's a grinder. He sustains an offense. Now, the pass catching stuff, just because he wasn't thrown to in college doesn't mean he can't be a receiver. We just didn't have exposure to that on his tape. I'm sure when they studied him and they worked him out, they probably threw him the ball quite a bit. And first of all, he's not going to be their third down back anyway. The more important thing for him, I think, is blitz pickup. He's not going to be their receiving back. So blitz pickup to me would be the more important thing.
Is he so different than Brian Robinson last year? I'm just struck by, Brian Robinson comes in and he is a veteran, and yet he never seemed to stick in the system. Does Kaelon Black have skills that are much more of a good fit with Shanahan's offense than Robinson last year?
Well, Robinson's also, in a sense, a grinding type back. Now, Robinson, he was a free agent, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he just signed the 1-year deal. He was a free agent after this past season. So yeah, they're not going to re-sign him to any big number, and they probably feel they can get a backup running back in the draft, as they did. And they did the year before too with Jordan James. So they're not going to re-sign a back, and they've had great success obviously over the years, as you guys know, with backs who are not high draft choices. So I mean, look at what Jeff Wilson did for them for years. I mean, they've had great success with those kinds of backs. So they were not going to re-sign Brian Robinson.
Greg, another camp standout who I think the 49ers are very excited about is Osa Odighizuwa. And yes, we've talked about him before, but specifically as Nick Bosa comes back, it's sounding like Mykel Williams will not be ready for week 1. How do you think the presence of Osa changes this pass rush that needs to be so much better?
Well, they've clearly made a commitment through that trade and the drafting of Grayson Halton to get some juice in the interior with a pass rush, because that's what Odighizuwa is, and that's what Halton is. Halton, watching him at Oklahoma and watching him in this first preseason game, and again, I'm just looking at traits. I know, although he did beat Skoronski, who's an all-pro type guard, on the play where there was a penalty, but he did sack Ward where he beat Skoronski. So they clearly made a commitment, because they had no inside pass rush a year ago. And quite frankly, when Bosa went out, they had no outside pass rush either, because they had one of the lowest pressure rates and sack rates in the NFL a year ago. As you guys know, that's not news to anybody listening. So they made a commitment to the interior pass rush, because Collins and West are not truly pass rushers inside. Even if they like them and they feel they're going to be really good players, they're not truly pass rushers. They're more run defenders. So they made a commitment there. The big question is this. When Mykel Williams is ready to go, and it may not be till week 3, let's just throw out week 3 for the sake of discussion. So what are they going to do with him when they go to their nickel? Because last year, under a different coaching staff, in the nickel, they moved him inside. He only played outside in the base. He moved inside in the nickel. Now, much of that, I think, will depend on other players on the outside and what Halton can do as a rookie. If they feel Halton can come in and play 20, 25 snaps a game as an inside pass rusher in nickel, he won't play in base. In nickel, then they'd want to keep Williams outside, in which case they really have to work with him as an edge pass rusher.
You mentioned Grayson Halton as an interior pass rusher. How is he in the interior against the run from what you've seen on tape?
He was, again, this is just, the Oklahoma tape, you have to put in its own category, because Oklahoma did a ton of slanting and stunting, which I doubt the Niners will do anywhere near as much as Oklahoma did. So that's not a true comparison. But to be honest with you, I was surprised a bit watching him in this game, because I thought that he showed, a little more physicality than I would have thought. There were run game snaps where he displaced interior offensive linemen in this preseason game. But essentially what he is he's a one-gap penetrator. He's a pure 3 technique. He fits the profile of an NFL 3 technique D tackle, where you line up in a gap and shoot a gap, where you're not hand fighting with the offensive linemen, although you have to do that at times, but that's not the strength of his game. But he did do that a couple of times against the Titans and handle himself well.
Greg, this might be a weird one, because I know Mac Jones would have to be thinking back to last year, but the team is very intrigued by Curtis Rourke, and obviously he did some interesting things in this game. How would you compare those two, and do you think that Rourke could play well enough to where it would encourage the Niners to sort of put Mac Jones back on the trade market as they did in the offseason?
Well, all I have with Rourke is what I've seen. They're with him every day, so they can answer that better than I. But stylistically, Rourke fits the Niners. He's a timing rhythm player. I remember watching his last year at Indiana. That's what he is. He's a timing rhythm quarterback that theoretically fits a Kyle Shanahan system. Now, again, they're with him every day. I can't speak to what they feel about him. You'd have to feel really, really good about him because Purdy did miss games last year. You know that if Purdy were to go down and you put Mac Jones in, you can line up and you can beat anybody. I mean, Mac Jones did very well when he played last year, and he has NFL. He's been an NFL starter and played well. So this is a team that is not looking to rebuild or to retool. They're looking to compete. So it would all depend on how they feel about Rourke. But Rourke is stylistically that style of quarterback.
And you probably won't be able to expose him to, waivers or put him on the practice squad. Somebody might snatch him up. Yeah, so that'll be a roster decision. I do want to ask you about Jaden Duggar and what you saw from him on film, because, Greg, I'm fascinated by the player that he might be, kind of a hybrid linebacker, secondary pass rush guy.
Well, there were two guys on defense that really fascinated me. Well, three. Duggar and Martin at linebacker both fascinated me a lot. I really liked Martin a lot. He's the twitchiest of the linebackers that played in this game because obviously Warner and Greenlaw did not play. He's got some twitch to him. Martin, he's got short area burst. He's got explosiveness downhill and laterally. He's a missile. I mean, there were snaps where he attacked downhill in the run game with power and force. I liked what I saw of Nick Martin, and I watched him at Oklahoma State as well, so I was familiar with him. Duggar's a fascinating guy. He was a former safety. He's got great length. He's got plus speed to play sideline to sideline. That he lined up over the slot at times, depending on the offensive formation. He's almost got the combination of linebacker safety traits. He's almost like a big nickel guy in some ways. So he'll be interesting to see as he develops. He'll make the team, but just the length and the speed is something that gets you excited. But the third guy, we talked about Halton. The other guy that I was really intrigued by, and again, he was a 4th-round pick, so I don't know. He was the defensive player who played more snaps than anyone, and that's the corner Prysock. I mean, he played predominantly left corner. He had snaps in press man and off coverage. I really liked the way he played. I did him coming out of Washington. He is long. He's a good athlete for his size. I'm really curious to see. They obviously wanted to get a good look at him because, as I said, he played the highest number of snaps of any defensive player.
Greg, while we're in the defensive backfield, how are you sort of seeing the race for snaps at the safety position? We haven't talked about it a lot. It's the same group that it was last year, and it wasn't terribly great year for them last year. So between Mustafa and Brown and Siegel, how are you seeing that shake out right now based on performance?
Well, I would think that, the leaders in the clubhouse are Brown and Mustafa. I mean, I think that, if they had to play a real game tomorrow, Brown and Mustafa would be the starters. Siegel obviously got a lot of snaps last year early in the season due to injury. And then when Mustafa and Brown came back, Siegel did not get many snaps. So obviously they feel that those two guys were better a year ago. I can't speak to Siegel's improvement or lack thereof, because I'm not there every day. I think those would be the guys in the mix. Davis has been in the league. He's never truly been a starter. I remember when he came out of Cal, he was drafted high because he ran really well. He's been a special teams player. You can play him, but I don't think he'd be in the mix to be a starter.
All right, Greg Cosell, NFL Films, big moment that we've been waiting for. Who do you like in the NFC West this year?
To win the division, are you asking me?
Exactly.
Looking for a lock here, Greg.
This is the big prediction at the finish,
yeah.
Greg.
Come on.
I mean, I'd have to say right now, that's a tough call. Let's just, because now you're getting into, injuries and all that, which we'll leave out for now. I would say I like the Rams. If you really said right now.
Well, it was a good run, Greg. Yeah. It was nice having you.
But the Niners are second, right?
Oh, are they in that division too?
Yeah.
Oh, I meant the Niners. Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I meant the Niners.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I forgot they were in that division.
Forgot where the old bread was buttered for a second there, Greg.